This video is titled 5 Tips for Traveling to Africa. And the reason why I'm shooting this video is to, number one, simplify the process as far as getting to Africa. And then number two, demystify the process as far as getting to Africa. For some odd reason, well, the reason why I say demystify is for some odd reason, people are making, or they have this misconception that traveling to Africa is difficult. They make it seem as if traveling to Africa is like buying a ticket to the moon, when it's very simple. What I tell people, when you go on Cheapo Air or when you go on GoDaddy, instead of entering London or Paris or Hong Kong or Tokyo for your destination, enter Lagos or Accra or Dakar or Johannesburg or Dar es Salaam or Nairobi for your destination. And then you buy your ticket and you fly there. It's pretty simple. But I'm gonna, give you some tips as far as in order to help making traveling to Africa more easy. So tip number one, I'm sorry. Try to find a direct flight out of America to a nonstop direct flight is a nonstop flight out of America to Africa. For example, if you want to go to South Africa, you could fly directly out of Miami to South Africa to Johannesburg via South African Airways. Their major hub is in Miami, so therefore, if you want a nonstop flight to Africa from America, South African Airways, they have that option. Also, too, if you want to fly to Nigeria, you can fly Delta out of Atlanta directly to Lagos. And then me personally, I'm flying to Dakar, Senegal out of Washington, D.C., direct flight. So, they are direct flights from Africa. I'm sorry, direct flights from America to Africa are pretty rare, but they're out there. So you just have to find them. So, if you want to go to Senegal, you can fly out of Washington, D.C. nonstop. If you want to go to South Africa, you can fly out of Miami nonstop. And then if you want to go to Nigeria, you can fly out of Atlanta to Lagos nonstop. So there's more out there. You just got to look them up. Which leads me into avoiding layovers. Obviously, a lot of us are working professionals. You want to maximize your time in Africa. So the last thing you want is a long ass layover in another country. So, and then also too, I'm going to say this. I would avoid layovers in the Middle East and in London and Paris. Reason why? Middle East is a ticking time bomb. We all know that. And I don't want anybody to get caught up in any mess trying to get to the motherland in the Middle East. London and Paris are always under constant terrorist threat. So just avoid London and Paris. Now, if you have to fly or if you have to lay over in the Middle East to get to Africa, I'm going to suggest flying Turkish Airlines and Emirates. Those are by far the two best carriers on the planet, in my honest opinion. The planes are comfortable as hell. Food is great. Service is great. Everything is great. And the cities that coincide with those airlines, Turkish Airlines, their major hub is in Istanbul, and then Emirates, their major hub is in Dubai. So, those cities are more stable in the Middle East. So if you have to lay over in the Middle East, going to Africa, then Turkish Airlines and Emirates are by far the best options. I actually flew Turkish Airlines 2 years ago, going to Dakar, laid over to Istanbul overnight. Actually, my flight from LA, I flew out of LA. The flight was like 16 to 18 hours, something crazy to Istanbul, but it was I was comfortable. Like, it went by in a flash. And then coming back to America that same year, I flew Emirates out of Johannesburg back to LA. And again, the service, the flight was great. Now, if you have to lay over in Europe, I'm going to suggest going through Amsterdam to get to Africa. KLM, it's a pretty good carrier. And Amsterdam is a great city. So if you want to, leave the airport and go into the city, you can do it. Amsterdam's a great city. So if you want to fly KLM to get to Africa, I know KLM flies a lot to East Africa. I'm actually flying to Kilimanjaro in December via KLM with a layover in Amsterdam, coming out of Newark, New Jersey, actually. If for some reason, in order to get to West Africa, you have to fly out of Paris, a layover in Paris. Air France sucks. The service is terrible. I was not impressed at all with Air France, and I'm going to do another video on the best airlines in Africa or to travel to Africa with, and the worst airlines to travel to or from or around Africa with. So we'll get on Air France later. But yeah, I just was not impressed with Paris. I avoid Paris. I'll put it like that. So London is cool. I love Heathrow. Heathrow's a great airport if you have to lay over. Usually if you're flying to Africa with a layover in the UK and London and Heathrow, you're probably flying Virgin, or you're probably flying British Airways, which are pretty good carriers. They're nice carriers. But again, Paris, not impressed with Paris at all. And, for some reason, when you're going to certain countries, like, for example, France. France colonialized a lot of West Africa, and so they're still pretty much connected. So your only option flying into West Africa, sometimes if you don't want to fly through the Middle East, you have to go through Paris. So, you're kind of stuck with Air France, and they're the least expensive, but again, the service is pretty bad. So, and I'll rant on Paris and Air France later. Number 3, when you get to Africa, avoid doing Westernized shit. What I mean by this, usually when you get to a new city, you go to your hotel, you shower up, you change, you want to hit the streets. First place you want to go to usually is the mall. Stay away from the mall. Like, when you go to Africa, be African. Enjoy the African culture and what Africa has to offer. I know a lot of Africa is westernizing, but I mean, if you're in America, you could do Western shit all day. Go to Africa, enjoy the African culture, enjoy the African people when you go to Africa. So avoid doing Westernized shit in Africa. Which leads me to number 4. If you plan on doing an activity in Africa, I would suggest setting that up once you get there at your hotel. Don't book activities online, because usually they price gouge you online. Literally, prices are like 200% more expensive than if you book the activity in Africa. So when you get to Africa, when you get to your hotel, when you check in, say, hey, I want to go on a safari, or hey, I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, or hey, I want to see Lake Victoria, or whatever. Do it at the hotel. They'll find a local guide who's usually from the city, knows everything about the city and where you're at. They'll take you around, and it's easier to do it that way and less expensive. Number 5, not a big fan of South Africa, but I love the airport in Johannesburg. Love the Joburg Airport. If you have the opportunity to fly out of Joburg or into Joburg, or lay over in Joburg, if you have a connecting flight somewhere else in Africa, absolutely love the Joburg Airport. My favorite store is in the Joburg Airport. It's called Out of Africa. The food is great. Plus the rand is very weak right now, so you could pretty much get pretty good deals when you're exchanging the American dollar for the rand as far as buying items. So Joburg Airport in Johannesburg. I think it's called, I think the abbreviation is Tambo, or I don't know. But the Johannesburg Airport is by far the best airport in in my opinion, my favorite airport in the world. So, recap. Direct flight from America to Africa. Let's reduce the amount of layovers that we have to get to Africa so we could maximize our time in the motherland. Two, avoid layovers in London, Paris, and the Middle East just to be safe. If you fly out of Europe or have a layover in Europe to get to Africa, KLM, Amsterdam is the best way to go. If you have to lay over in the Middle East, Istanbul and Dubai, Turkish Airlines and Emirates are your best bets. Number three, don't do westernized shit. Don't go to Africa to be American or westernized. When you go to Africa, enjoy the culture, enjoy the people, enjoy the African way of life. Take off your American hat or your westernized hat and, change your train of thought or whatever thoughts, preconceived thoughts you had on Africa, leave it in America and be African. Let it go. Four, book your activities in Africa, not in America online, because the prices are always more expensive if you book them online here in America versus if you just book it at your bed and breakfast or your hotel in Africa. Then the last one, go see the Johannesburg Airport. And I believe it's Tambo International is the airport code, or that's what it's called, TAMBO. Not sure what it stands for. Please forgive me, but I love the Johannesburg Airport. Check out the Johannesburg Airport when you have the opportunity when you're in Africa. Leave some comments, subscribe to my channel, and as more tips come to mind, I'll make sure I'll post them. If you have any feedback, leave it. If you think this helped, leave it. And then also go to my website, www.searchforuhuru.com. When you get a shot, check me out. I'm out.